Hey folks, Randy here with Dolan Cut and Trim. So I figured I would take the opportunity to tell you about the one time in my professional life that I have screamed, and I do mean screamed, at a customer. I've only ever done it once. I got in the business in 2015, and as of this recording, it's October of 2019, and I have only one time screamed at a customer, and boy, on this occasion, I really let them have it. And so this is going to be a two-part video. The first part will be the one time I actually did get into a verbal altercation with a customer, and part two will be me telling you how I made it worse. So basically I got hoodwinked by a customer. So when I was first starting, I was part-time. I had a guy called me, wanted the leaf removal done, and this was before I bid leaf removals hourly. And so I told him I would have to come out and quote it. I took a look at it. I told him it would be $300. So myself and a buddy of mine went out to take care of it, and it took us 12 man hours to get it done. 12 man hours for $300. Really blew it on that one. So while we were there, though, this guy came out, and I gotta be honest, in person, the kindest, gentlest of gentlemen I have ever met. I'll just say that. He was an older guy, and he unbelievably pleasant. Just very gracious person, which makes this whole thing just so much more maddening. And so he comes out and says, how much would you charge to cut my lawn? I tell him. He's like, perfect. See you in the spring. And so he signs up to work with us in the spring. And, we service it for a couple of months. And things are going fine. But at this point in my personal life, my son was going through quite a few medical difficulties and was in and out of the hospital. And on one of those instances, my son went into the emergency room on a day when I was supposed to cut this guy's grass. And so I sent out an email to everybody like, hey, look, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to get to your lawn today, and I'll get back to you when I can. Well, I wasn't as professionally mobile then as I am now, and so I didn't really have stuff with me to communicate with my customers effectively, and my son actually ended up having a much longer hospital stay than we anticipated. I think this ended up being one of his longer ones. And so this guy, at some point in this process, he sends an email saying, hey, I need my lawn cut by this date. If you can't be here by this date, then just don't even bother showing up. And when I got that email, there was like 12 hours left in that day, and it was just like, there's no way I'm going to be coming out because I'm in the hospital with my son. And this part's my fault. I just didn't respond to him. It's like, well, I'm not going to be able to make it, so he's getting somebody else, so oh well. So that is my fault. I should have responded to him and said, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm sorry. But I didn't. So a month goes by, and he hasn't paid his invoice, because this would have been the first cut of that month. So he didn't owe anything for that month, but he owed for the previous month. So that month goes by, he doesn't pay. A second month goes by, and he doesn't pay. And so I decided to give him a call. And, we were still having ongoing medical issues with my son, so everything revolving my son's condition was kind of a sore spot for me. And so I call him up, and I was like, hey, Randy with Dolan Cut and Trim. I'm just trying to, find out when you intend to make payment on such and such invoice. And he goes, you didn't cut my grass. And and it got overgrown. And I was like, yes, sir, I'm very sorry about that. My son was in the hospital. Bull! And he curses. I'm not a cursing man, so I'm not going to do that. But he said BS, but said the whole thing. And he didn't say it nicely. And, there's a lot of things people can and do to me that just doesn't even bother me. But if it involves my wife or son in absolutely any way, I come completely unglued and just see murder, and that's about it. So he says that, and I was like, I'm like, excuse me? My son was in the hospital, and he said you're a liar, and I was like, okay. And I gotta be honest with you, man. When I get angry, I kind of lose track of what I'm saying, or even recalling what I'm saying. So I don't know what I said to him, but I know it was at an extremely high volume. And I mean, I was screaming at this guy. Just, I wish I could repeat back what I was saying. I honestly don't remember. I just remember it was loud, and I was like, I mean, I'm on the phone, like, gesticulating, like, ah, you know. And he says, I can't remember what he says, but at some point I realized I'd lost control, because I lose control, but I can get it back. And I've lost control, and I'm like, I'd get it back, and I'm like, when will you be making payment? And he was like, and he says, I don't, like, you don't talk to people. I was like, when will you be making payment? And he was like, I don't see why I should pay for blah. And I said, you know what? This bill was for June. You had no complaints in June. You had complaints in July when we didn't even cut your grass. We're not even talking about that. When will you be making payment? And he goes, when I get around to it. And I go, when will that be? And there's no answer, and I look, and he's hung up on me. So, I was so angry, because I don't, like, I mean, I feel like you guys, I try and be pretty honest on here to, like, who I am in real life. My wife says my voice sounds funny on here, but other than that, I'm pretty true to who I am. So I think you guys can get the sense I'm a pretty laid back guy. So for me to get that worked up was just, you know, it's kind of that doesn't happen often. But it must have worked, because 3 days later there was a check in the mail. So that's the one and only time I've ever screamed at a customer. So that was part one. And part two of this video, because unfortunately there shouldn't be no part two. There should be no part two. The story should end right there. There's a part two. And I'll tell you about that next time. It's Randy with Tool and Cut and Trim. Have a good one.